So I chose Herman Max Gluckman as my sociologist of choice, and he was a conflict theorist proponent. And so the conflict theory, just like an overview, it was suggested by Karl Marx, and it suggests that society is in a state of perpetual conflict due to competition for limited resources, and that social order is maintained by domination and power rather than like for a consensus and conformity as seen with the functional perspective. And individuals work to maximize their own benefits. It's all for like private interest. And social and economic institutions are tools of struggle between groups or classes, and they're used to maintain like inequality and the domination of the ruling class or the bourgeoisie above the proletariat or the working class. So Herman Max Gluckman was a proponent of the conflict theory and helped to develop it in its modern form. He was born January 26th in 1911. He was a Jewish South African and British social anthropologist. He began by studying under Winifred Hernal and got a Rhodes Scholarship and went to Oxford University. And then Gluckman's work was supervised by R.R. Marett, but his biggest influences there were Radcliffe Brown and Evans Pritchard, who were proponents of structural functionalism. And then eventually in 1949, Gluckman became professor of anthropology at the University of Manchester, founding the department there. One feature of the Manchester School that was special, that derives from Gluckman's early training in law, was the emphasis on case studies involving analysis of instances of social interaction to infer rules and assumptions about society as a whole. Later, he worked under the British administration in what was then Northern Rhodesia, commonly now known as Zimbabwe, studying judicial processes in the Brotsi tribal courts. He was widely known for his radio lectures on custom and conflict in Africa, being a remarkable contribution to the conflict theory. Gluckman was also an open and forceful anti-colonial political activist. He engaged directly with social conflicts and cultural contradictions of colonialism, with racism, urbanization, and labor migration as just a few of the main elements he focused on. Growing up with and later studying African colonial and tribal conflicts, Gluckman combined the British school of structural functionalism with a Marxist focus on inequality and oppression, basically critiquing colonialism from within a view of structuralism. In his research in Zululand and South Africa, he argued that the African and European communities formed a single, united social unit, one whose schism into two racial groups formed the basis of its structural unity. His analyses of political systems among African tribes greatly contributed to the field of political anthropology. He viewed conflict as inevitable, and traditions and rituals were the natural way that societies preserved themselves. He noted that colonialism brought a more violent side to this, and unpredictability, because the traditions of colonial society often clashed with those of indigenous societies, from what he experienced growing up and observing African tribes. Gluckman also argued that conflict and rebellion are inherent in a society, as each individual or group of individuals struggles to achieve their own private interests. However, unlike Marx, who saw conflict leading to a revolution, Gluckman claimed that conflict led to resolution. So basically, once opposing parties engage in a conflict, the stage of resolution is reached, leading to alliances, allegiances, or like treaties for peace. After much contribution to conflict theory in its modern form, Gluckman died in 1975 in Jerusalem in Israel. And then current instances of the conflict theory and evidence of its remnants in society today. So today, many view the rise of global capitalism and a competitive consumer culture as evidence of the conflict theory, a system based on power inequality and classes. The middle class is shrinking, and the top 1% owns just over half of the wealth. Conflict theory suggests that social and economic institutions ensure the maintenance of those with the most wealth and power in the higher class, leading to oppression of the working class. So our institutions in today's society have furthered this separation between the upper and lower classes, so making there's no longer a real middle class. And then specific current examples include like tribal warfare, geographically anywhere, the working class, labor unions that protest until conditions are met, whether that regard pay, hours, or fundamental rights. This includes things like Red for Ed in 2019, when public school district teachers in Arizona rose up for increased pay. Economically, the global system, like World Bank and International Monetary Fund, benefit the most powerful countries and corporations rather than the subjects of development. So this leaves undeveloped countries and corporations undeveloped and continues to promote already high up ones. And then finally, our criminal justice system is based on socioeconomic inequality, punishing street crimes far more severely than white-collar financial business crimes. So this shows the criminal justice system as an institution that socially and economically oppresses the proletariat class. So essentially, conflict theory is still majorly seen in political, social, and economic facets of life and society today, and Herman Max Gluckman helped to develop some of those theories and modernize it, and brought in the idea of resolution instead of revolution. So thank you.